Welcome to Talk to Me. I'm your host, Brenda Warren, and I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Jay Ishino, all the way from Osaka, Japan. Jay has been an educator for over 20 years and is currently teaching Japanese students literature and Shakespeare. I'm excited to have Jay here because Jay is an author. Jay's journey to becoming a published author a, has not been a short one. She started writing in community college and decided she wanted to be an author. After stacks of rejection letters from publishers, she decided to focus on her teaching career and eventually became known for being one of the best writing teachers at her school. Picking up her writing career where she left off so many years ago wasn't easy, but she started writing again seriously in 2016. She completed her first novel, A Year of Rain, in 2020. She completed her second book, A Zombie Horror, in March of 2021. It's expected to hit online retailers and brick and mortar stores in 2022. She is currently working on her third book, a sci-fi adventure. Jay, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm okay. It's early in the morning here, so I'm just waking up.
The time difference is always a challenge when I interview people overseas. And you being in Japan, me being in North Carolina, it was quite the chore to get our schedules to match so that we can get this interview done. But I'm excited that you're here with me. Please tell me how you started off teaching in Arizona before you moved to Tokyo and now you're in Osaka. Could you tell me a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life because I had wanted to be a writer and I wasn't making any progress in that area. I wasn't, getting any interest in my stories. And so I had talked to a friend who had just started the teaching program and he recommended a university. And I was like, well, that sounds like right up my alley, a small university that, where you can get more individualized attention and be done quickly. And I thought, well, okay, so I will just become a teacher and then write in my free time. The only problem is I didn't have any free time. So I kind of put that dream on the back burner. But I actually student taught with my high school English teacher, and she was an amazing, amazing mentor for me. And she literally taught me everything I know. And I ended up teaching at the high school where I went to high school in Gilbert, Arizona. So that was quite interesting and a bit of a change for me. And later in my teaching career, I started taking students on trips to Japan in conjunction with the Japanese teacher. We'd work together to recruit kids who wanted to visit Japan. And it was just like a tour, a travel trip just for fun and cultural learning. And I did that 4 times and just kind of fell in love with the country. And I said, I want to live here. And so I started looking for a job in Japan, and here I am 10 years later.
So you mentioned your teachers. I believe that's Miss Foley and Miss Fleming were your teachers that were your mentors. Could you tell me about them and how they were instrumental in you becoming a writer?
So Miss Foley was my high school teacher who I student taught with, and she was a very strict writing teacher, and it actually was wonderful because she had such high standards of all her students, and we had to like rise to meet her level. And I tried to instill that same level of quality in my own students' writing. When they would write, this is, even if it was good, it could always be better. And I always tell myself that too when I'm writing, even if it's good now, it could always be better. And then Mrs. Fleming was my senior year Shakespeare teacher, and she's the reason that I love Shakespeare and the reason that I teach Shakespeare today. So, yeah.
So when you made the transition to come overseas and decided to live there, how was that for you making that transition?
Difficult. I had only lived in Arizona my whole life.
Mhm.
And so I had I had the same friends for years. My whole family lives in Arizona. And then I came to Japan and I didn't know anyone and I didn't have any friends. And I was really, 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 really homesick for the first, like 6 months. And then I started making friends. And after that, it just became a lot easier to live here. So I always think that having friends in a place, no matter where you are, makes that place that much better.
So now you've been there for a while, you've established roots, you're a
Yeah.
respected teacher where you are, and it says in 2016 you got serious about your writing. Tell me what happened that 2016 was a pivot for you.
Oh, I actually reconnected with an old friend who I hadn't spoken to in like 10 years. And he kind of inspired me because he's a really unique person. And I was like, I should write a story about him
Mhm.
because he's so unique and he just inspired me. Just talking to him, we didn't really talk about writing or anything like
Mhm.
that. We were just playing catch up and what have you been doing the past 10 years? And I was like, he would be a great he would be a great character to read about. And he's actually in my zombie book. He's one of the major characters in
Okay.
the zombie. So he's what inspired me to get back into writing again, definitely.
So what was your first step when you decided I'm going to write this character? How did you prepare yourself for writing your first book?
The zombie book is actually my second book.
Okay.
My first book, A Year of Rain, is it's a completely different story. But in regards to this character, I just kind of because it's not him now, it's him as I knew him back then. I kind of like I read I read through all my old blogs and
Mhm.
his blogs about like us and about the time that we were friends.
Mhm.
And I kind of used that as like a jumping off point to start my story.
So Jay, even though you hadn't written a book prior to the Year of Rain or your zombie book, which was your second book, you were already blogging and doing writing anyway, just hadn't written a book. So you were already working on your skills continually during the process.
Yeah, so I had this will tell you a little bit about my age. I was blogging in the MySpace days, so
Okay.
I was using MySpace to as my blogging platform, and then after that I had like a sewing blog because I
Mhm.
like to make clothes, and then I had a cooking blog, and then I had a blog about my life in Japan. So I've been blogging for a number of years.
That is so cool. I sew as well, Jade. I love making clothes. Wedding dresses are my specialty.
Oh
But
my god,
I'm excited to know, are those blogs still available? Because I'd love to go back and look at some of them.
I don't think so.
I just had to ask because some, me being a person that sews, it's always good to see sewing stuff, and it seems that you have a lot of interest. But the one thing that is common is about your opportunity to write. So you'll write about anything, it appears, that interests you.
Yeah, and I really kind of have a lot of interests. I think my sewing blog is probably still up. I'll look for it for you. But
Okay.
the all the MySpace blogs,
Yeah, I'm
MySpace
sure.
like
Mhm.
completely they're completely gone from their old format. So those are all gone. But I was able to like download them before
Mhm.
they they disappeared completely. But so that was a bit of a walk down memory lane.
So once you got to the point where you said, okay, I've blogged, I've done all this, and I'm going to go ahead and write my first book. What was, for those people that want to write their first book, what was some of the things you did to get yourself started?
So for me, it wasn't really like I sat down and I'm like, I'm gonna write a book. So what happened was a friend of mine were um, he said, I have a short story that I think you might like to read. Would you read it? And I was like, well, it's a short story. I absolutely have time for a short story. I would love to read it. And he sent me a short story, and I was like, well, I feel like I should reciprocate. I mean, he didn't ask me, but I feel like I should write a short story too and send it to you. And so I did. And that short story that I sent him was actually the start of A Year of Rain. So it started as a short story about two characters, and then it in November it just kind of I was like, well, I have this short story and I like these characters, so let's go. Let's write a whole book about them.
Now, is your process a traditional process where you did character modeling and then you did all these outlines or chapters, or what was your process?
Oh, no, 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 no. In my real life, I'm like super organized. But as a writer, I'm just totally like, I'm gonna sit here and wait till some words come. So we call those discovery writers, and the opposite of that would be a plotter, somebody who plans out everything, right? They have like character maps and timelines and binders and everything. But me, which is funny because like in my real life, that's how my desk is organized. Everything's organized, everything has a place. But when I write, it's just like, all right, we're getting these words out of my brain. I don't know where they're coming. I don't know if they're even good, but I think for any writer, really, it's like, it's important to just get some words on the page, and it doesn't matter if they're good, you can always make them good later. So that's my process, is just sit down and stare at the computer for hours until some words come out.
Now, I understand A Year of Rain is available for pre-sale, or is that already on sale?
It's available for pre-orders right now. Since what month is this? Oh my gosh, it's June already. So it's been available. Yeah, it's been available for pre-order since about mid-April. And it's right now special pre-order price of $3.99. So that price will go up when the book is actually released. So I'm trying to encourage people to now, yeah, because the price is definitely going to go up, and when it on its release date, which is October 5th, 2021.
Well, what little teaser can you give us about which would give people an incentive to go pre-order A Year of Rain?
Yeah, sure. So my book is for people who like paranormal fantasy. So it's a story about a girl who is lost in the, well, not a girl, she's a woman. I keep saying girl. A story about, because I don't want to confuse people, like it's not a YA book, but it's a story about a woman who is she gets separated from her friends, and she's lost in the woods, and she comes across a cabin, and in the cabin is a man who is very kind and very gentle, and he takes care of her and nurses her back to health because she's injured. But she comes to find that he has a dark and dangerous secret. So that's a little teaser.
Okay, that's a good teaser. I'm like that. I'm interested. Okay, so once you've written A Year of Rain, you thought, I have nothing else to do. Let me write a zombie book. Tell me about that.
Well, the writing process is a lot of hurry up and wait. So while A Year of Rain was in the hands of an alpha reader, I couldn't do anything with it. I have to like walk away. So that was like 2 months of time when I had nothing to do with that book. And then that was about the time that I had finished. So first of all, I finished the book at the end of November, and then I had to sit on it because my alpha reader couldn't take a look at it immediately, and so I just had to sit on it. So I had nothing to do writing wise from like December to my alpha reader finished looking at it about March. So all that time I was like, well, I got this other book, this zombie book that was really like, that was the book that I started in 2016, and it really has been so hard to get that story out. And so it really took like that whole time to get to that end of that story. And then while Year of Rain was with beta readers, again, I had nothing to do. And then so the zombie book was finished. So I'm like, okay, well, it's time to write a space book now. So it's like a lot of downtime while my book is in the hands of other people. So right now, I'm back to A Year of Rain and I'm editing it. And once I'm done with that, it'll go to a developmental editor. And while she has it, I have nothing to do again. So it'll be back to writing the space book, which is not quite finished yet. So
now you used a couple of terminologies that I'd like to ask you to define for us. I think you used the terminology, you said you keep saying girl, but it's really a woman. It's not a YA book. So if you can tell us what that is. And please explain what an alpha and a beta reader are, what they are.
Absolutely. YA is young adult.
Okay.
So young adult books when I was a kid were really not so great. But recently there's been like a huge resurgence in an interest in YA. So YA books are generally your protagonist is a teenager.
Okay.
And they deal with like things teenagers would deal with, like coming of age, crushes, those kinds of things.
Okay.
So that's YA. And I love YA. I don't like, my shelf is full of YA books. I love reading YA books, and I plan to write one in the future. So maybe that's the next one.
Okay. So Year of Rain is an adult book?
Right. It's my protagonist is an adult. She's an adult woman. So it doesn't really fit the parameters of YA.
Okay.
So
use the terminology alpha and beta readers. What is that?
So when you finish a book, you want somebody to look at your book to help you with like initial problems that might be in your story. So consistencies in the story and the timeline. If your alpha reader wants to, they can check for grammar. My alpha reader was very big on commas, and apparently I'm not very big on commas. So he was constantly telling me I need to add a lot of commas. And he also pointed out that I have a tendency to go on and on and on with my sentences. So he helped me make my sentences smaller and smaller chunks. So he was looking for initial problems with my story, inconsistency, any questions that he had that weren't answered, or something like, this seems very sudden, this you didn't explain enough, this doesn't match the timeline, any sort of inconsistencies in the story itself. So your alpha reader looks at a very, very raw version of your story. So like literally right after I finished writing it, I gave it to him to read. So he saw like the very first draft of the story, and he helped me work out some problems that I had with my timeline, with my characters, problems that I had with what else did he point out? Questions he had about things that I didn't maybe like flesh out enough. He also it sounds like a lot of negative feedback, but he also pointed out like, this works really well. And, this helped me visualize this character. So it's not all negative feedback, which is good for me because I'm really sensitive.
So it's important it's important to have that person look at it so that you make sure you have a story that's cohesive and that makes sense.
Right, because you don't want to get, when we write something, and I tell this to my students all the time, the first time you write something, you should walk away from it. Do something else, watch TV, play video games. I don't care what you do. Go hang out with your friends, just walk away from your writing so that you give it time to breathe. And then when you come back to it, it looks all fresh in your brain, and it's easy for you yourself to figure out what you need to fix and what you need to change. But because it's our own work, there's often a closeness to it that we can't see things that like another set of eyes could see. So I think that's why alpha readers are important, is because he's like, the more set of eyes I get on my story, the better I can make my story. So he was the first set of eyes who was like, what is this? Or this is great, or I don't understand this, or something like that. Use a comma.
So now what do the beta readers get?
So different people do different things in regards to beta readers. I might change my process in the future, but an editor recommended that I do beta readers before I do any editing. But beta readers are just testers. So they're not as extensive as alpha readers, but they can give you, so they test how your story works on your target audience. So you want to have beta readers who are interested in your genre. So for example, if I was writing a YA book, I wouldn't want to have a romance beta reader because that wouldn't be the same genre, like it wouldn't match. So for my beta readers, I chose people who were interested in paranormal fantasy, and I gave them after I edited with my alpha reader, they got another draft of the story, and they looked at it's kind of a very similar to alpha readers, just an alpha reader, just not as extensive. Like some of my and every person is different. So some of my beta readers wrote extensive comments all throughout the manuscript, and some of my beta readers just answered a series of questions I had at the end. So I guess it just depends on the person, like how much work they wanna put into your manuscript. But they look at same things like how the story works with your target audience. So those are beta readers. So that's the process I just finished. So now I'm on my third edit of my novel. And then after that, it'll go to a developmental editor. And then I'll edit it again. And then it will go to a line editor. And then I'll edit it again. And then by that time, people can have a paper book in their hands.
So there are a lot of steps if you do that. So when you have these alpha, beta, line editors, development, all those, there's a cost associated with that, I would assume.
So generally what you can do is you can find alpha and beta readers to do the work for free. Some of them offer a fee for their services, but a lot of people do a trade.
Okay.
So I'll read your manuscript if you read mine, kind of thing. But for developmental and line editors, yes, there is a cost. And anytime you're getting a price quote for line developmental editors, there's also copy editors and proofreaders. Anytime you're getting a quote for any of them, you have to tell them how many words you have. And also, is that editor interested in your genre? Because you don't want somebody editing your book who's not interested in your genre, because they won't be interested in your project. So for me, that was more important than the cost, was that I found someone who was interested in reading my story and who would be invested in my story more than the cost.
So as you have gone through the process now of writing 3 different books, and they are different.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a new writer that was starting where you started in 2016?
I would say read, and write. Because when you read, you see, especially when you read as a writer, I think you see books a little differently, because once I started writing seriously, I started reading a lot more seriously. And I've always been a reader because I'm a literature teacher. So I've always been a reader. But once I started writing, I started like my brain started picking out things that I needed to do in my writing. So like, wait a minute, I'm not doing this, but this published author is doing this. So I should probably be doing this. So my advice is always read and write.
Do you have a favorite author in the genre that you're working in currently?
So in my genre, paranormal fantasy, it would probably be Anne Rice and her vampire books. And she's I wouldn't say her books inspire me to write, but they definitely inspired me to read. And her vampire series, I think, is like 12 books or something like that. So that's a lot of reading that I did when I was younger. So her books definitely inspired me to read.
Do you feel that the background that you got from your teachers in high school prepared you for what you're doing now?
In high school we do, and I teach a lot of technical writing, like essay writing and analysis, character analysis, plot analysis, that kind of writing in high school. And it's not the same, but this year especially, I've been teaching creative writing to my students. And I think if I had taken a class like that in high school, that would have prepared me more for this. But so I think it's quite different. And I wish I had taken a creative writing class in high school, because I think it was available to us. I can't remember.
Do you have a favorite character in each of your books, or just one favorite character of any of your books?
Well, so I don't want to be biased though. I really like Henry from A Year of Rain, and I really like Rain herself. And because I'm a woman and I'm a flawed, strong woman, that's who I tend to write, as flawed but strong female characters. And I hopefully, I think I've managed to do that with Rain herself. So I think because they are my first book babies, it's probably Henry and Rain. That might change later.
Okay. Now, when you've written The Year of Rain, and you have your zombie horror book that's coming out, and you got your sci-fi adventure coming out, are there other books in your future?
Oh yeah, definitely. So some of my books, well, actually, like it seems like all of the books except for the zombie book, but the A Year of Rain and the science fiction book, those all started as short stories. And I have a ton of old short stories that I wrote when I was like in my 20s. And as I look at them now, it's like, oh my gosh, these are terrible. But because they're written, I can fix them, right? So you can't fix like a blank piece of paper, but you can fix words on a page. So I have a ton of short stories, and I have a couple that I really want to turn into novels. So I'm not done. Definitely not done.
That's good. All right. I would say, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know today?
Oh, okay. Don't give up, because I kind of feel like I did. But I often tell people, like, your timeline is not everyone else's timeline. So my timeline it's just got pushed back a little bit. And I came back to writing a little later in my life. And that's okay. That's okay for me, because that's my timeline, and it's not the same as your timeline, as her timeline, as his timeline, as their timeline. We all have a different timeline. So advice I would give to my younger self is definitely don't give up, keep writing and keep reading. And I kind of did that, I guess.
I think you did. Okay, Jay, here's a question for you. If your life was a story you were about to write, what would be the title?
Oh my gosh. No, that really put me on the spot. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
I honestly don't know. And you know, it's funny that you asked me that question, because for me, titling my books is the hardest part. And I never have a title, it seems, until like the very last minute. And I always have to ask my readers for help. I'm like, please help me. What do you think? Do you think any of these would be a good title? So you found my weakness.
Well, because I was trying to think of that, because I was thinking, what would I call our interview today? And I'm going to call it An Author's Journey. That's what I'm
Okay.
gonna call it.
All right. That's definitely what it's been. It's been a journey.
It's been a journey. Well, Jay, tell me, how does all the things that you've been doing, leaving friends, family, going to Japan, starting a whole new life, teaching these beautiful Japanese students, and I can say from my own experience, I was fortunate when I was stationed in Iwakuni, Japan, as an active duty Marine. I got to teach English to Japanese students, and I was thrilled to do that. But with you doing all of that and now becoming a published author, not one, not two, but 3 books coming and more on the way, how does that help you live your best life?
Well, this has been my dream since I was like 18 years old. So I feel like, holy cow, I'm doing it, which is, it's so exciting, but it's also super scary. Mm-hmm. But I really think that this is what I want to do, and I love doing this. I love writing, even though sometimes I'm like, oh. But this is what I want to do with my life. I want to share my stories with the world, and I want people to fall in love with my books like I've fallen in love with books and characters throughout my life.
Well, Jay, I thank you for coming to talk to me, and I'd ask you to just stand by for a minute while I do what I do in this portion of the show. It's called Thank a Veteran. Ladies and gentlemen, and Jay, I'd like to invite you to thank a veteran. If you want to do that, all you have to do is go to www.nevcc.org/projects. Pick one of the writing prompts, one for every month of the year, and join the Basket Brigade. By joining the Basket Brigade, you will be one of the many people that thank a veteran. Lisa Deschamps, the executive director of the New England Veterans Chamber of Commerce, has made it very easy for you to write a sentence, write a note, write a paragraph, write something to tell a veteran you appreciate their service. It's never too late to say thank you, y'all. Just go to www.nevcc.org/projects and thank a veteran. At the end of the year, Lisa and her team will compile all of those thank yous into an illustrated book that will be placed in a basket full of goodies. And on January 1st, 2022, some very lucky veterans will get that basket filled with goodies and that beautiful book filled with illustrated thank yous on January 1st. It's our way of saying thank you for your service. So join the Basket Brigade and be one of the few, the proud, the many that tells a veteran thank you. Jay, do you have any final thoughts for our audience before we close this interview?
No, I just want to say, read something. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's a magazine article or newspaper, the back of your shampoo bottle. It doesn't matter as long as you're reading something. So that's it.
I remember when I was little, Jay, I used to always hear the term reading is fundamental. And as an avid reader myself, I agree. Read the newspaper, read to a friend, read to a frenemy, just read. And remember, you guys, the choices you make today will be the reality you live tomorrow. Choose wisely and read.